All right, everyone. In the last 48 hours, we have had an astounding number of sexual revelations regarding Hollyweird, DC, and many more things. We've got Roy Moore, we've got Steven Seagal, which actually is relatively recently breaking, I think in the last couple of hours. Actually, Portia, Ellen DeGeneres' wife, came out and said, yeah, he was told me that he wanted to have, sort of offset chemistry. It was important, and started unzipping his pants and was like harassing me. Yeah, maybe. You've got to realize with this, with Louis C.K., with Judge Roy Moore, with Charlie Sheen, with Steven Seagal, all of these people, these are allegations. Now, we walk a fine line. When we're talking about this kind of allegation, we don't want to side, we don't want to potentially throw some victim back to the wolves and act like, well, your story, it's just an allegation, so fuck you, basically. Because if it is true, I mean, that'll just totally rip a person's mentality apart. At the same time, though, at least in the legal sense, think what you will in the court of public opinion, people must have their day in court. When you've got a situation where it's one person alleging something, that should be, in my mind, weighed less than if you get, you have a Bill Cosby or a Weinstein. You have dozens of people alleging the same thing, corroborating one another. Sometimes you have sealed testimony and it's 20 years later, it's corroborated by what a dozen other people are saying. I would think that lends some weight to the argument. I understand, of course, if you can't prove that somebody's committed a crime, and in some cases, these, by the way, aren't even criminal allegations. It's like, on the harassment end, so the civil end. You can't throw somebody in prison even if you think that they're guilty. It's like you could know that they're guilty, but if you can't prove it to a jury, the point is moot. That's the whole way the system's meant to work. But we can just go through it because, at the very least, with all of the allegations we've had in the last few weeks, it would be almost unthinkable to me that at least some of them aren't true. And the problem is, of course, determining which ones are and which ones aren't. So first we've got Judge Roy Moore, the big one. At least the one that most people are talking about because, of course, he's on the conservative end. I think that does, in all honesty, have something to do with it. The allegation is that when he was like an older dude, he was sleeping around with teenagers. Now, some of them were legal at the time. They were 17, 18. By the way, in most states, 17, that's actually beyond the threshold. You may not realize that. I'm not exactly sure why there's a differentiation between states. I'm not sure that that's sensible because it appears to indicate that people mature at different rates in different states. Not so sure. I do know that's the case in countries too. It's like Polanski, why do you think he went to Europe? Some of the Europeans have no problem with the fact that he boffed a 13-year-old. And that's not even an allegation, he did. But with Judge Roy Moore, the big allegation is that he was in his 30s, he's like, I think 36, and he was sleeping with a 14-year-old or molesting her or something. Yeah, it's creepy. And if the allegation is true, he absolutely should step down. The problem lies in this. Simply having a crucifixion of somebody when there's no actual proof of wrongdoing, even if the allegation is a really bad one, doesn't make sense. It's a little bit like, hey, this person is a Nazi, based on no evidence, nothing specific, you don't know if they have a swastika tattoo or any skinhead affiliations, but the court of public opinion determines that they're an evil racist, and so they get them fired, and they rip apart their family and basically force them to flee, and they get harassed all the time. I don't believe in that kind of vigilante justice, including for people for which the allegations are something as heinous as what Judge Roy Moore supposedly did. He must have his day in court. He should not be compelled to step down unless you actually can show, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he's done something like that. That being said, the allegation could very well be true. And people, if it is true, anyone defending him's got issues, which was my point about Hannity. Some people thought that I was saying, oh, Hannity's a dumbass because, he's saying wait and see. That part I don't have a problem with. My part is, it appears, based on the transcript of what he said on his radio show, that he was defending a consensual relationship with a 14-year-old by Judge Roy Moore. That appears no longer to be the case. It appears that that was selectively edited. If so, I was wrong on that count. Of course, if that's not what he was referring to, I have no problem. If he's referring to Judge Roy Moore sleeping with an 18-year-old, well, they're 18, who fucking cares? Creepy, yeah, Hugh Hefner level creepy, and when Hugh Hefner died, it was a good day for the world. But at the same time, it's not illegal. Now, what we're talking about is, of course, his alleged interaction with someone who was not legal at the time. And then we have Seagal, like I said, Portia. Ellen DeGeneres' wife's like, oh yeah, he's unzipping his leather pants and stuff. Yeah, possible. He does strike me as the sort of person, personality-wise, based on, you can look up, footage of him sort of off-air when he's let his guard. He's not method acting at the time. He does seem like the sort of person who might do something like that. I'm not sure, though, that it's not illegal. That would be more of a, hey, you're being creepy, leave me alone thing than a, hey, throw him in a cell thing. But it's still a part of this wider apparent problem within Hollyweird. Then it was it Mariah Carey or one of these other, female pop stars? One of her guards was saying, oh, I was sexually harassed by her. And this, by the way, she didn't even pay for, give me my money and stuff. It's not just a male thing. It also traverses politics. Like in Louis C.K.'s case, it appears that nothing he did there was criminal. It was maybe a sort of harassy, but not in the sense that I don't even think a civil case could be launched. Like if you say something creepy to someone, if you approach them and you're like, hey, let me beat off for you, which is one of the allegations, and you say no, and then they leave you alone, that's not criminal. That's just a proposition. It can be creepy. It can certainly rub you the wrong way, but it's not criminal. That being said, in Louis C.K.'s case, is funny because it appears to perpetuate, again, the Trump curse, which is that people who very visibly come out and say terrible things about Trump, they seem to either keel over or this sort of thing happens to them. This is like the dozenth fucking time that it's happened in the last 6 months or so. Weinstein would be another example. Weinstein, very prominent liberal, very big-time fundraiser for democratic causes. Look at all the allegations piling up. He's basically, at this point, he's the left-wing Bill Cosby. And then you look at Louis C.K. He had an email, apparently, that he sent out, and he was likening Trump to Hitler during the election. Now, of course, 5 women have come forward. Oh, yeah, he was like being rapey to me, harassing me and stuff. Not maybe to the criminal threshold, but he was being creepy. Sort of like a Joe Biden. As opposed to an Anthony Weiner, I suppose. Which is a step in the right direction. It's better than being like a pederast or something. It's better than being Anthony Weiner. It's better than being a rapist like Bill Cosby. You're just being creepy. Okay, different threshold, okay, maybe not criminal, but still, it's going to ruin his career. He's going to have trouble, at least for some time, finding work. Now, let's say something also about Hollywood. Hollywood will forgive you, if you didn't do anything criminal, they'll back off and say, okay, well, we can't work with you for a couple of years. We're canceling this TV show, not coming to your premiere, not going to be seen with you in public, lay low for a while. For a couple of years, the person backs off, and then, they re-accept them because it wasn't a criminal case. In the case of something like a Weinstein, they're more screwed. In the case of Louis C.K., he's going to have to take a couple of years off. And that's what he should do, just back off for a couple of years, lay low. You didn't do anything illegal, so it's a different story from some of this. Then we have Charlie Sheen. And the allegation there is that he actually committed statutory rape with Corey Haim when he was 13. Sheen was 19 at the time. Now, depending on the laws, I don't know what state this would have taken place in. Depending on the laws, that may actually be covered under a Romeo and Juliet statute, oddly enough. I know in some states they have that and some they don't. And it gets kind of weird because it's like, oh yeah, in this state your relationship's fine. In that state it's like, a misdemeanor. In this state it's a felony. Why? It doesn't make sense. Can we have one national system like any other civilized nation in the fucking world? One thing on which states' rights may not be the greatest idea because you got fucking 10-year-olds getting married off to some Mormon pastor in Oklahoma. Isn't that a little bit of a problem? I think so. But again, Charlie Sheen, in many cases it seems that his interactions with other people have been violently rapacious. Talking about being so coked up he starts beating hookers and stuff like that. So if he's doing that sort of stuff with adults and he's got a track record, constant drug use, hundreds of sexual partners, has HIV, apparently didn't tell all of his partners about that, or at least that's the allegation. Isn't this an individual with a problematic disposition of sorts? So that, in my mind, again, retroactively maybe that lends more weight to the claim that he was actually doing this. In that case, though, it's the allegation as well, though, is that Corey Haim was consenting to it, like it was statutory. It wasn't like Charlie Sheen held a knife to his throat. And again, it's just an allegation. We don't know. And here's the thing, Judy Haim, the mother involved, said, no, it wasn't Charlie Sheen that did this. This didn't happen. And now she's like talking about going on some fucking talk show to name the person who actually abused her son. And this ties all into the Corey Feldman stuff, and it's just, it looks like something's unraveling that's a little bit larger than just a bunch of disparate cases. It looks like at some point we're going to find some, like, linchpin pimp living in the sewers of Hollywood who just, like, abducts and drugs people. That's honestly what it kind of is beginning to look like, because it's so pervasive. The number of claims that are coming out, just among the moneyed elite as a category of people, has already achieved a threshold where it is far beyond what I would hope would be present in the general population. My hope is that it's not like 1 out of 5 people in the general population roofies people and molest kids and stuff. That's my hope. I hope that I'm correct in that presumption that Hollywood is just more sexually inclined in an illicit and harassing way. Then, of course, we've still got the unseen hands of it all, like Woody Allen, Dan Schneider. Nobody wants to talk about Epstein. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that it seems like a disproportionate number of these people were friends with Epstein either, including Bubba Bill. You know, that kind of rapey governor there who liked to insert cigars into people's orifices. Let's not talk about Epstein at all. Let's not talk about, the Podesta brothers. Let's not talk about any of that stuff, because that's just conspiracy theory. Okay, yeah, Hollywood, a lot of the people in Hollywood are apparently interested in snorting cocaine and doing illicit sexual things, but there's no actual central figure helping them to do this. They're just all doing it individually. It makes perfect sense. It's not the way that crime often works. Sorry, but I think that some of these things at least are connected. Now, to Woody Allen's words, the one kernel of truth there is that just because somebody like a Louis C.K. is like degenerated and harasses women, doesn't mean they're in the same category as like a Weinstein or a Bill Cosby or certainly like a Charlie Sheen if the allegation there is true. But it is part of, I think, a wider problem where you've got people that are drugged up, that have more money than sense. Stardom goes to their head, and in some cases they start indulging the worst of their vices. And it goes, I think, beyond just, hey, Charlie Sheen has a lot of prostitutes for friends. Which, he does. I think most of them make him wear a rubber at this point. Use the dental dam, Charlie. Don't get in too deep there, I guess. It's just, it's kind of fucked up, to tell the truth. That's about all. Peace out.